Peace be with you and welcome to my channel. My name is Trevor. Really grateful to have you here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over my weekly rotation for the week of post-Christmas up to New Year's Day. So without further ado, just going to get into the day after Christmas. It was Monday. I was kind of having a hard time deciding what to reach out for because for one, the weather kind of jumped up almost like 50 degrees. We were in it around like -10 on average the week that Christmas was coming in. And then we jumped up to almost like the 40s. So it was almost as if spring kind of had reared its head because the warm weather was kind of reemerging, the snow was melting, and even though it was still December, it felt a little bit like spring. But I was watching somebody else's weekly rotation video on that day, and they ended up wearing this one, so I decided to go ahead and reach for it as well. This is going to be Guerlain L'Homme Ideal Intense. So I really enjoy this one out of the entire line because for me, this is the most versatile. It's slowly became my favorite out of them all. At first I didn't like it because its projection and sort of presence wasn't as loud as a lot of the other ones in the line, but for that reason I think it's a little bit more versatile, a little bit more worthy of a signature scent. So yeah, nice easy wear. It's pretty unique. It's got some smoke and chili pepper, but it's balanced out with some freshness from a rose note, and then obviously the signature almond accord that's this fragrance line is known for. Really just enjoyable wear, nice kind of melding between the increase in temperature with some of the sort of smoky, peppery kind of aspects, but then nice creamy almond sweetness for the fact that it was still a little bit cold. That was Monday, Guerlain L'Homme Ideal Intense. Tuesday, again, because the weather had kind of been nodding itself off to spring, I reached for another sort of fresh yet sweet fragrance, and that was Versace Eros Parfum. So this is the only one I own out of the line. I smelled the other ones at Sephora's, but this one I think is probably the most grown up and the most the least attention seeking, I guess I should say. I did get a compliment when I wore this one on Tuesday. Monday it was still snowing a little bit, even though the weather was kind of getting up into the 40s later on in the day. It was snowing a bit, but by Tuesday it was nice, sunny, felt really like a spring day. The mint in here just kind of reminds me of the green of spring, and then the vanilla sweetness in here made it a good wear for me in the cold. So that was Tuesday, Versace Eros Parfum. Wednesday I got some new fragrances in, and I wanted to do some test running with them. So one of those was Azzaro Pour Homme Intense. So my first impressions and my first wearing of this one, for whatever reason, and maybe it's just my skin chemistry, but I couldn't really pick up the cinnamon note that's supposed to be the most prominent accord in here. However, like maybe it's just because it's gotten some time to oxygenate, and after spraying it a couple times I can really smell the cinnamon off the atomizer now. But yeah, this quite enjoyable. It's a little bit it kind of smells like what you're paying for. This used to go for like $20 when it was not discontinued, but now that it's been discontinued, it's kind of in the $40 range. And so it does have a slight cheap kind of smell to it, but overall it's a really nice, there's like a soapy vetiver in here that accounts for the real nice barbershop feeling, and I think some tonka that sweetens it up, and the cinnamon gives it a nice kind of spicy edge. But yeah, for me at least, it's predominantly a soapy vetiver kind of barbershop fragrance, and it's sweetened up a bit. It kind of doesn't remind me exactly of John Varvatos vintage, but they definitely are scratching the same itch per se. This one I think had a little bit longer or better longevity compared to Varvatos vintage, but I like the scent profile of the Varvatos fragrance a little bit more. I'm gonna have to get some more wears out of this one. It's only so-so in my books right now, but it's still really pleasant and enjoyable, and something that I'm sure I'm gonna be reaching for quite a bit here in the January month. Also, I think there's like a boozy accord in here too. I get that subtly in the dry down. It's not so, like I said, it's more soapy vetiver for me. But that was Wednesday, Azzaro Pour Homme Intense. Okay, so Thursday, like I said, it's been feeling quite a bit like spring here. So Thursday it was sunny, close to 50 degrees. Or it started out sunny and then it got cloudy later on in the day. So I was a little bit more excited about this one when I was leaving the house, but later on in the day, it kind of getting more cloudy and cooling off a bit. I might have wished to have gone for something not quite as light, but this is another newer one to my collection, so I wanted to get some more test driving out of this one, and that is Mancera's Cedroit Boisé. Did get a compliment on this one, so it did go over well as far as the public was concerned, but it was a beautiful kind of strong musk, a zesty sort of citrus, but then it dried down and you could kind of get this powdery vanilla towards the end of the wearing of the fragrance. I started to go nose blind a little bit after quite a little while, but I was getting noticed with it further on into the wearing, so the longevity is pretty good on this one. It's an eau de parfum concentration. I think they came out with an intense version. I've yet to smell that one, but like I said, just with the way the weather's been here, feeling a little bit more like spring, grabbing something like this was a pretty enjoyable wear. So that was Thursday's Mancera's Cedroit Boisé Eau de Parfum. Okay, so Friday, again, kind of feeling a little bit like spring, I decided to wear a blue fragrance, or a semi-blue fragrance. This one's kind of a little bit more sweet, maybe not necessarily wearable in the high heat, but Friday I went with Desert Toxic from the House of Micallef. So this is a really nice kind of sweet, unique cannabis note in here as well. I think there might be some blackcurrant, or there's like definitely a very strong fruity top note in here, and then some like kind of sweet resinous sort of vibes going on also to just kind of give it a well-rounded blue style appeal. Hence, like, you know, you can see the packaging kind of nods itself to that. But yeah, this one, I personally enjoy this one quite a bit. I didn't get any compliments on it, but it was nice, great performer, long lasting, carried me out through like the whole 9-hour or so work shift, and you know, nice, sweet, and fresh, checks all the boxes, does covers all the bases, and I think just accented the fact that it was kind of like a springtime sort of tweener weather patterns going on. So that was Friday, Desert Toxic from the House of Micallef. Okay, so Saturday was New Year's Eve. I did do a top 10 New Year's fragrances. So I was trying to kind of feel a little bit classy, a little bit more dressed up, sort of something that I could come to a party to, even though I didn't end up going out that night. I spent the afternoon helping this elderly woman that I check in on every now and then I would think I was in bed by like 10 o'clock. My wife was working late and I was watching my daughter, but felt classy throughout the majority of the day wearing this one though, and did dress up a little bit when I was going out. That was Saturday's Tom Ford Beau de Jour. Barbershop fragrance par excellence, just a beautiful, probably my favorite lavender fragrance that I've got in my collection. Davidoff Zeno is somewhat in the same scent profile as this one, if you ever smelled Zeno. I believe Zeno was the inspiration for this fragrance, since that one came out in the 80s, but this one's a little bit more, I mean, this is still old school, but I feel like the Zeno is dated, so a little bit of a distinction between those two. The Zeno also has like a strong sandalwood, whereas this one doesn't have that going on. But yeah, beautiful barbershop fragrance, awesome sweet lavender, super classy. One of my top 10 fragrances of all time in my collection as of right now to date. But yeah, that was Saturday, New Year's Eve. It was a little bit sunny that day as well, still right around 40-50 degrees. Super pleasant, probably the most enjoyment I got out of wearing a fragrance throughout this week, Tom Ford's Beau de Jour. And then finally for New Year's Day, I did a first impressions on a couple of fragrances, and this was the fragrance out of that haul that I decided to put on. So I was just kind of giving this a test run, testing it out. It's a recently discontinued, but I got a really good price on this one from FragranceBuy.ca, and that is Prada Amber Pour Homme Intense. So I have the original Prada Amber Pour Homme. It's kind of like a nice spicy soap with the spice predominantly being saffron in that one. This one has a lot of the same notes as far as the note breakdown goes, but it's accents or accentuates some of the different fragrant notes in there. So while the original Amber Pour Homme is kind of more a spicy soap, this one is more of like a resinous myrrh dominant fragrance with some soap in the background. Yeah, I went a little bit nose blind to this one when I got my first impressions, so for whatever reason I was having a hard time smelling it, but it does last a long time. I could smell this on myself when I woke up the following morning to take a shower, and I hadn't put this on for some time, so I was getting at least, maybe 10 hours of longevity out of this one. Like I said, it starts off kind of dark, resinous myrrh is going to be the main player in here, and then it dries down into like that classic Prada soapy kind of vibe. Definitely sweet, fresh at the same time. Quite a lovely fragrance. I'm going to have to get some more wears out of this one to really give a full, opinion on it, but my first impressions of it on New Year's Day was quite enjoyable, to say the least. And I think just wearing a soapy fragrance to kind of feel clean and moving into a new beginning on New Year's Day was also why I kind of reached for this fragrance. So that was my weekly rotation from the day after Christmas up to New Year's Day. Still kind of figuring out what I'm going to be wearing today on January the 2nd, but especially because the weather is not very January-esque. It's like starting to look about 50 degrees here again, and at this time of the year we're usually used to being in the negatives, kind of how we were for my last week's weekly rotation in the tail end of December. So we'll kind of see where things are going at throughout this month of January here in the Midwest, but that was my weekly rotation for this past week. Let me know what you're wearing today, what you've been really reaching for here now that the New Year's is coming, if you even wore fragrance for New Year's. So comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.